station of decapitation without your head.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by director Daniel Lusko.
Hi.
And production designer Stacey Lusko for Ape vs. Monster, which is out now on video on demand on Amazon. And where else can you get it? Pretty much.
Yeah, you can get it on Redbox. You can get it on Fandango now. I'm pretty sure you can get it on Vudu, Roku, pretty much all on-demand streaming platforms.
Yeah. Before I actually go into the movie about that, how has that changed over the years, with the rise of the streaming sites and less, physical media?
Well, you know what? That's a great question. It's not changed significantly for me in terms of filmmaking. I think that David Fincher is right when he says that a movie changes in terms of your perception as it trickles out into other platforms. So when you think of Blockbuster, for example, or a theatrical release, you are thinking of a movie differently. So when it's all going out at the same time to people, it definitely changes, I think, the way the immediacy of it as a filmmaker. Certainly when you're making an Asylum movie, one thing that I discussed with our director of photographer, Marcus Friedlander, was it's very exciting because you know that it's going to get a good, solid release. And even though, there's not always a physical copy, it's going to be everywhere. And that's very exciting. So I think for a low budget filmmaker, it's actually more exciting because let's say we were making these teeny, ultra low budget movies 10, 20 years ago, it'd be much, much harder to get it into a Blockbuster, say, for example, or a DVD store. Still hard, though, I think, to get it into some of the DVD places like Target, for example, or Best Buy. But we've still had good success getting them in those places for the DVD releases, and even on certain occasions, theatrical releases. But I think it just changes how the immediacy of the release, is perceived. So, when you're making it that week, it's going to within a few months be everywhere. More opportunity for low budget filmmakers, I think, than anything else. Yeah.
You said they're a tiny budget, and I noticed right away when I started watching Ape vs. Monster, not just because you hear it actually has a much more production value, higher production value than a lot of movies.
So cool to hear. I love.
Well, that's really great. A lot of that's
Thank
due
you.
to the credit of her team as the production designer and her art director and the set dressers, some of which were interns, and she can address that, who really were innovative in creating a lot of these set pieces that there was a very, very limited budget for.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting reading the script and thinking, and I can just be honest, there were tears shed looking at the script because I kept thinking, how are we going to do this? You look at the numbers and you want to deliver something that's kind of Daniel's heart and it passes down to everybody else, but of delivering above and beyond what you would expect. And we had one of our first crew meetings and we're sitting there and I'd gotten quotes that capsule was going to be $10,000 to create. And I'm thinking, we've got like a couple hundred to pull this thing off.
Right.
How are we going to do this? And then that just attitude shift of we're just going to build it. We're going to build it ourselves. I have no idea how we're going to do this. We're going to build it ourselves. And thankfully, our art director had connections and people that were able to help weld and put this thing together. And it's so satisfying then really to get that feedback from people like yourself that see it and understand that it was a way above and beyond anything we had in terms of dollars. But it's when you bring heart and passion and belief that suddenly you've got something you're really proud of.
And I think all of that type of work that she's talking about, building this capsule, and we had interns burning it on the day of production, it really trickles into the VFX department, because when they can see that you've done everything that you possibly can in terms of the physical effects and production, they go a step further, I think, as well. I think it's inspiring to the VFX department, and I feel like it shows a little bit.
Yeah. So how did you get involved in the movie to begin with?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, I've worked with the executive producers on several films with the Asylum. They're great producers. We've worked over 10 years together on, 5 different movies, I think at least, from thrillers to this action adventure to, even a romantic comedy we just finished.
Are those from the Asylum
that's
romantic comedy? Because I think a
Can you
lot of
believe
people
that?
think of it. Yeah, are they also from the Asylum, the romantic comedies?
Yeah, well, they actually, you'd be surprised. They are a production service company, so they work with major networks like Lifetime, Hallmark, other groups. So even major studios, Netflix, Universal. So for stuff like that, yeah, like romantic comedy, it may not come out as an Asylum movie, right, but there's a lot of versatility with their capabilities. Yeah,
interesting. What kind of movies are you yourself interested in? Like when you wanted to become a filmmaker, what's like the genre of films that you like?
Well, here's what I can say. I was just asked this question recently. I liked period films when I was a little kid, and I loved, action and I loved creating these big effects and fire and even blood. I remember one of the first movies I made with a friend was an homage to Last of the Mohicans. Oh, nice. And, we were so fascinated with this scene where the heart gets ripped out. You might enjoy that. And so we little 14-year-old kids, we created a prosthetic heart and, put the blood all over it. And they had the guy in Last of the Mohicans tied to a stake at our friend's house. We built a moat with gasoline and he rips his heart out and takes a bite. And we were like, yeah, we created a movie. And mom's come out and she's like, you almost killed my son, because he almost got lit on fire. Yeah. He didn't get lit on fire, but we felt successful as filmmakers because we were always after that production value. What can we do to raise the level up? We had actually used real machetes we had bought from the hardware store. And only later did we really realize that we could have killed each other with these machetes. When we looked at the dents between them, but we had that no limitation attitude, and thankfully nobody ever got hurt. So for me, it wasn't really about a genre as it was like immersing myself as an actor as well, because I love to act as well as direct, just totally immersing myself in the fabric of the story and becoming whatever I had to become to make it come to life. So like with this movie, she would tell you, like, when we're on set and there's like the huge monster creeping up on the capsule, and there's the guy, the soldier who's like inspecting the capsule.
He's hilarious. One of my favorite parts is when he's doing like the off-camera script feedback to get his actors into character. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it was
the way
like
he throws himself into the story.
Now, it actually didn't make the cut because they had to get a better quality voiceover recording. But when McDaniel's expecting the capsule, like, I just was having fun with him, like, hey, McDaniel's getting a little comfortable in there, you kind of, don't get too comfortable. And then all of a sudden the monster creeps up and I like become the monster. So I'm running over there like, and I love doing whatever I needed to do to sort of create a moment. And that's what made it fun for me. So it was creating those moments. And there's a lot of opportunity for that with a movie like this, when there's not much money and there's a lot of passion and heart. And you know what, that's not like a knock. I don't think. I think that like the budget, there wasn't much money. Okay. So we had people working on our movie who come off of the big Netflix productions, 125 million. You know what they tell you is it feels exactly the same. There's never enough money for anything. Right. It's like you have $125 million. There's no money for that. You have to figure it out. And so it's just obvious that you have to do that or you won't be able to make the movie. And that's okay with me. So we have to create everything and we have to be innovative.
Well, and I think if I could go back to your question of what is his favorite genre, I think the versatility that's really neat about Daniel is because he's so capable of just throwing himself into a storyline. He can actually, like, watching him direct this rom-com that we just got done with, coming off of 8 vs. Monster and having done an Air Force movie last year, it really is a testimony of his versatility to take what's necessary to bring that story to life. And so, like, I'm kind of interested in your question too of what his favorite genre would be, but I think it's more from him. He just loves a good story. and whatever it's going to take to bring that story to life is what's going to happen.
Like people say I'm funny. I'm not saying I'm funny,
He's
but
hilarious.
I find that that I love comedy even in an action movie. I like to look for the comedy in an action movie because otherwise I get bored. I want to find the things that are odd or between the lines about it. And the Hate versus Monster, actually, the executive producer of the Asylum, or like Mr. Latt, I refer to them always as Misters because I have a lot of respect for them. And so Mr. Latt was like, couldn't believe that I resonated with the script because I'd never done a monster movie before. But that's what I liked about it. And I was like, I've never done anything like this before. So when you read something like, how are we going to put this together? Like my favorite filmmakers, I feel like they are always like, they look at a script and they have no idea how they're going to do it. And I think that's where I want to start. So like we're looking at the possibility of doing a Western after this, and I couldn't be more excited because I've never done a Western before. I had never done a wedding movie, which we just did. And I was like, wow, we actually pulled this off. Like that was pretty cool. So my favorite genre is probably just a genre I've never done before.
Mm-hmm. Stacey, kind of the same question, being the production designer for all the different genres of movies. What is that like to go from, Ape versus Monster to maybe a Western in the future or a comedy?
Well, like personally, my absolute favorite genre, I will just unabashedly admit, is a historical drama. So it's been fantastic to step into these, which I know is completely not your audience. But I think that the heart of that is to be able to say, this is a great story and follow that lead to then take it and say, okay, how are we going to make this happen? And it stretches the imagination. Really, that's what unites us all as viewers, whatever our favorite genre is that we can throw ourselves into the world of imagination and for a couple of hours lose ourselves to the storyline. And so to be able to have the opportunity and the privilege to what I call really the visual character, to have an opportunity to create that and deliver on it and feel stretched in 8 million directions, but then at the end, see it come to life is so incredibly satisfying. And so as we talk about all of these different opportunities, now with having seen the areas that we've gone into, it's just exciting because again, it's just another place to grow and create and develop something. And really the truth of it is the people that we get the opportunity to work with, because you can't do it without an incredible team of people. And and that's what always amazes me is the people that will come out of the woodwork, work together, commit themselves to something. And at the end, you just look around and you feel so satisfied because it's really the essence of teamwork. So it's incredible.
And on that note, talk about people, like our stunt coordinator, we're like, well, we have to have the bottom half of a body that's ripped off by the monster. We have to have only that bottom half. And automatically Gary, who is awesome, he's like, oh, well, I can do that. I can get the lower half of his stunt pants and I can fill them with some, then I can sear the top of them. And then I can do all of that. And I was like, well, how much money do you need for that? He said, oh, don't worry. I can figure it out. Right. He wanted to do it. He had a genuine desire to help tell the story because he knows if we don't have that, it's not as much of an experience. So I think the teamwork, as more movies have made, it's really almost entirely about the people around you, and the team that you have to do it.
Yeah. Huge appreciation for that.
When you said earlier about, you were kind of run around as a monster, I think a lot of people ask actors what it's like to work with like a movie with a lot of digital effects. What's it like to direct a movie that has a lot of digital effects?
Good question.
That is a great question. I think at first it was a little bit intimidating because we're dealing with the VFX supervisor and asking him a lot of questions about, the scaling of these creatures. That was a little tricky because they're growing throughout the movie, and I just like asking a lot of questions to the VFX guys. I think that really helped Glenn, who's the head of the VFX department, just what do we really need to do? We need these poles. We need the scaling of the monsters and and the main thing that really I got clarity on was the more specific that we can be about the movements that we're creating and the way the actors need to be reacting, the more helpful it is for the VFX department. when it comes down to the creation of them. So
one of the things that you said, though, too, that I loved, he said so many times, I heard him say it in pre-production and on set, is, I want you to sell this. I want you to make it so believable. And that one line to everybody over and over, whether it's crew or cast, I thought was such brilliant directing, because when you have that many VFX and you're out there shooting it, you have to get your cast to sell that these things really exist. Or by the time they layer in the VFX, you didn't sell the story. And I thought that was such a great thing that you kept telling people.
I hope that some people pick that up with the movie, because what really was relentless about, if we don't believe it, nobody else is going to believe it. And so I felt that a lot of people really did rally for that, because I think that's probably maybe the biggest role as a director, because truth be told, there was a lot of planning I put into storyboarding every single, shot that is pretty routine for directors, right? There's a process that goes on. In fact, with such a good DP, the movie could probably even be made if I, went out of commission, it could still go on and be done. One of the things I feel like I contribute the most is that I suspend my disbelief like a kid and fully invest myself into believing this monster is real, so that hopefully on a subatomic level with the other actors and the crew, they feel that emotionally and they go, okay, we can't just phone this in. We have to believe this thing is chasing us, that's coming after us. And I give myself over to it completely, just unabashedly. And so if I feel like somebody's faking something, I get really passionate, because, this is an opportunity. It's a privilege. And I want to believe these monsters are real, and I want to believe they're battling, so that's where I feel like I really, do something that's contributing to the end experience, is my belief into the movie, into the fabric of the story. And I did feel that it translated in this case. People bought into it.
Yeah. I even in my notes is right. The ape Abraham, he emotes very well in the movie. You could, they're trying to put across he has emotion. Kind of, that's one of the best parts of the different King Kong movies, I think. But I thought it was done well in Ape versus Monster.
That's something we actually talked. Thank you for saying that, because that's something we actually talked about with the VFX team that I felt was pretty important. Is she's supposed to have a relationship, and the actress actually, Ariana Scott, did a really good job of investing herself into believing that relationship was real, and that was pretty cool. We had some good moments with that. I really, speaking of, all the guts and horror and all that sort of thing, she found this awesome location, this laboratory, and inside the laboratory they had all these different animal organs and eyeballs and everything like that, which was really cool to film all these laboratory sequences, all those real organs and tissue around us. I felt like it brought the energy into that place of, there's no BS here. Like we really, when they were evaluating and stuff, it just sort of gets into your DNA.
Yeah.
When you're looking at that stuff and you're around it.
How do you go about finding a place like that? Besides my basement, I don't know.
Oh, should have called you first, I guess.
Yeah.
Next time. Finding locations for this was interesting, because we had so many locations to find, and for such a short amount of time, it's a lot of phone calls, a lot of driving around, and a lot of phone calls and a lot of phone calls and some more driving around. That's really what it boils down to, just hitting the pavement.
After casting, locations for something like this, it's like the other 10%. They say casting is like 90% of a movie. I would say that's true, and I don't know that it is. The rest is primarily locations, and then the other small percent is actually setting sail with the ship and actually making the movie.
Well, and to that point, we had what I thought was like the creme de la creme of a laboratory that was going to be amazing. It had this really interesting contraption that they used for environmental studies that I thought, that'll be perfect for Abraham's table, and we'll be able to film it from all sides. And then a week before production, one of the employees at this lab got COVID, and they had to pull the plug, and they were like, nope, we're just, everybody responds differently to COVID. They were like, we're shutting down for as long as it takes. And that sends a panic, to be honest with you. And so it goes back to what he's talking about with belief of just like, okay, we're going to find something and it's going to be better. And really the laboratory that we ended up in was so much more dynamic. It wasn't as high tech, clean, white, sterile, but it was so much more interesting and had that really moody feel that it was phenomenal.
And they had a very generous attitude. The location, they brought in monitors and they brought in the microscopes, and they were just had that giving attitude. And I think when you're making a low budget movie, you really rely upon that attitude when you go to find. You want people that are like, oh yeah, we want you, not just transactional, but they really have a love for cinema, that they want this thing to work. And that's priceless.
Yeah. Now, I just interviewed the director of Aquarium of the Dead for the Asylum, and they had a premiere. Did you guys have a premiere?
We didn't have a premiere for this. We're still actually looking into options for a screening, but it didn't work out for us to have a premiere. But I think the Aquarium of the Dead, that actually is theatrical, isn't it? That's what I heard.
I think they just recently had the premiere.
That's awesome. That's so good. Yeah. We do theater screenings for a lot of these, but New Mexico, where we're at, was a little slow opening back up the theater. So when we were planning this, none of the theaters were open. So they just recently opened well after the release.
Same here. They just opened here too in Massachusetts, just like last week. So
it was exciting. Oh my gosh. Just to go back into a movie theater and see a movie, we were like, this is amazing.
I went to see A Quiet Place too recently. Yeah. So.
Oh, nice.
How was that?
Oh, I loved it. I loved the first one, and I thought the second one was great too.
First one was awesome.
You remember the last movie you went to see before they shut down?
What was the last movie?
The last movie we saw.
Last one I remember was that I remember, though it may not have been, was the Ad Astra, the bread. I remember seeing that before, but I don't remember if that was the last one. Because it's been over a year.
So long.
Yeah. I remember mine because it was King Kong. They released the original King Kong at theaters, and we went to see it before things closed.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That was
my favorite horror film ever made, if I could say, I'd like to ask you yours. What is your favorite horror film ever made?
If I had to just pick one, it's probably the original Frankenstein.
Okay,
I like Psycho a lot. And
do you count The Shining as a horror film?
Yeah, definitely. Shining's
that'd be mine, bar none. I'm a Kubrick fan, so I love The Shining. Great movie.
That's a great movie too. Yeah, definitely.
Incredible.
Yeah, I'd also have to put the Creep Show in there because it's the first VHS tape my mom bought me, so it holds a special place.
Oh, that's very sentimental.
I have it on the shelf here. The VHS tape is worn out and doesn't work anymore, but it's a cool clamshell case.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
Stacey, do you have a favorite horror movie?
No. I don't even have something that I could try to pass off. I'm so easily scared that I just no.
Well, she may not say this, but I think if it's not really a horror film, but it's more a thriller we made together called Agoraphobia.
Yeah, that was
which
a lot of fun.
She enjoyed doing that a lot. It was just a short film that we made during the lockdown. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
I saw it on IMDb, but I didn't realize you made it during the lockdown.
Yeah, we did. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely a little bit of a throwback for me to some of the scenes in The Shining and a lot of Kubrick's work, but we made that thing on a very low budget, and it was crowdfunded. So that was pretty fun. We had investors all over the world helping us put that thing together and giving us a movie to make, really.
Right, something to do.
And a lot of people throwing in locations. But there's cannibals chasing after that have basically taken over the whole world, and they're spreading this virus, and billions of people have already died. And there's this one guy, and he gets a radio signal on a cure, and he goes out against the cannibals fighting for his life. And so I played that guy, and she played the counterpart who's sending out the radio signal. And she's actually quite good. She did the production design as well. So That might be the closest thing to a horror film that
and I knew you were going to ask me that, and so I was even trying to think: is there anything I could say that I could pass off? And
well, there are cannibals in.
Well, there are, yeah. So
agoraphobia
is my favorite. Then I guess that's my favorite.
That's good.
Right.
Can people check that out anywhere? Agoraphobia?
Yeah, actually, they can. Just YouTube Agoraphobia, Daniel Lusko. That's probably the easiest. It was a 7-minute short film. Original score, actually, by the Asylum composer, Chris Ridenhour. Chris Ridenhour, and he did a beautiful score.
Yeah,
it's a silent film, so it's only Chris Ridenhour's music.
Yeah.
And he's the secret weapon of the Asylum, in case you didn't know, or one of them. One of them. There's many secret weapons to the Asylum. But he did a great score on that, and he donated it as well.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out. So Ape versus Monster, available now on Amazon and Redbox and Video on Demand, wherever you get your video on demand. And this was very fun to talk with both of you.
It was very fun to talk with you as well. It's such a great privilege.
Yes,
we really appreciate it. We had a good time.
And can people follow you anywhere? Not to your homes, but where?
Oh, not to your homes.
We appreciate that.
We live at 543. No. Yeah, they can follow us on Instagram. Stacey Lusko, Daniel Lusko on Instagram, Facebook. Same thing. There's a Daniel Lusko fan page also. That's probably the easiest way to find us. Plus, also have another movie fan page called Persecuted. Which is a pretty big page. We post a lot of Facebook Live stuff as well. Yeah.
Right. Very cool. All right.
Cool.
Thanks for doing this. Yep.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you. Thanks a bunch.
Take care.
Enjoy.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.